All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to On the Sidelines with Sav. Sorry, we had a technical difficulty, so we had to restart. But I am Savannah, and I am here with Patrick Allen, who has been here before, but reintroduce yourself for those who weren't here the first time around.
All right. Well, I'm from Texas. Spent 6 years in recruiting and personnel with different college teams such as Tulane, Utah State, Sam Houston, etc. And now Savannah and I work together at Roundtable. Read all of our stories if you haven't. And additionally, I work for Catapult as their director of scouting in Texas.
Love it. Perfect. Welcome back to the show. I can't wait to talk about all your hot takes that were correct.
Yeah, they weren't that hot.
Don't you love when people online are like, oh my gosh, this is the most insane. You know how ridiculed I got online for saying that Indiana was going to beat Oregon?
I mean, I would imagine quite a bit because I didn't think they would.
Yeah. So it's like, I love when hot takes end up being correct. Michael already said something. He said Louisville, Cuse, KS, West Virginia, Iowa, all these schools. And now Florida State can pull up on a stool in the Stanford opponent's one club because Stanford. We're about to recap the ACC. I feel like that's a good place to start. We might as well start with Florida State at Stanford. All right. Florida State, Stanford, ACC recap. Let's start with that one. This is now Florida State has lost 9 straight ACC games. They are 0-4 in the ACC. They are one of 3 schools that voted to not add Cal, Stanford, and SMU. And beautifully, because the football gods are so poetic, all 3 of those schools this week lost to schools that they didn't want in the ACC.
Yeah. I think this is a great example of live by the portal, die by the portal. We saw it in 23. They hit on almost every portal guy they brought in. Last year, they missed on almost every portal guy they brought in, finished 2-10, and they looked great in week 1. We thought it was 2023 all over again. But this is what happens when you bring guys in like that. They're not in the culture. They're not immersed in it. And so when the going gets tough, so do the players, and they're on a 4-game losing streak. They're not invested in Florida State, and you kind of wondered if they can even pull out of this.
Yeah, I think a couple things. One, I think it's a bummer to watch because I think that they have a very good coaching staff. I really do. Those are coaches who have won a lot of games and a lot of things in their tenure as coaches. I mean, Gus Malzahn is the winningest coach Auburn has ever had against Alabama, and it was during the Nick Saban era. So, like, I don't want to discredit the coaches that are there, but I also feel like I believe in karma, and right now there's 2 pieces of karma that Florida State cannot escape, and that is one, thinking that they were above the ACC and wanting to join the SEC and thinking that they would just manhandle everyone and then you lose to Stanford. And 2, I've said this so many times, but it's just facts. Homeboy, Null 137 or whatever, didn't eat the shit, okay? And
that we know of.
Like, no rights will be wronged until this man eats the shit, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, at this point, it's not if, it's when. He has to do it.
Has to.
You know, where, when do we live stream it? A lot of questions. Bring him on the pod. Do it on this pod.
Honestly, I'll reach out. That's exactly where it should be done. Yeah, just kind of crazy. And then of course Stanford got their fine for not rushing the field because they did not rush the field. And I quote, coming onto the field because of course they did it in a single file line that involved zero rushing because there wasn't enough people at the game.
I get why those fines are there, but I think there needs to be a lot of like context, and like, it can't be a black and white. Like nobody was in danger with that field.
1000%. 1000%. All right. Wasn't planning on starting with that game, but I love it. Moving on to the Friday night matchup, which again, normally I would have started with, but Stanford was just too exciting. Louisville at number 2, Miami upsets all around. Louisville wins 24-21. Carson Beck throws for 271 yards, but probably would have thrown for 350 if he didn't throw 4 interceptions.
Yeah. I think there's two ways to look at this. If you're a Miami fan, you could have the sky falling, classic Miami of the last 20 years. You start out great, you look great, and you fall apart. Or you could look at it as your quarterback had a horrible game, 4 interceptions, like you said, probably the worst game he's going to have this year, and they still had a chance to win.
Yeah.
They only lost by 3 to a very good Louisville team. And so you're not going to win every game, and thanks to this expanded playoff, you don't have to. And so if you're going to have a loss, you kind of want it at this point in the year when you still have time to learn from it. And again, they didn't win. We know that, but they didn't look bad. So a lot of not moral victories. I don't believe in moral victories, but a lot of things to learn from.
Yeah, no, definitely. Feel like Miami no longer controls their own destiny in the ACC. That puts Louisville, UVA, Georgia Tech more so in the conversation. But yeah, you're right. I don't think they're out of the playoff contention yet because of the expanded playoffs. So there is that.
Do you think they have to win the ACC to make the playoff? Do you think that's the only way they do it?
They now have 1 loss.
Correct. They made it harder than they needed to.
They did. So if they, okay, because then Louisville's only loss is to UVA.
Correct.
UVA's only losses to the Pack, baby.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. But it wasn't an ACC game. So I say that if it comes down to Louisville and Miami being the other 2 teams, then it would have to be Louisville because Louisville won the head-to-head.
Right.
And then Miami, sorry, the thought process of this has to be out loud, but this is what's going on in my mind. Then Miami's a 1-loss ACC team. Okay, so here's where it goes. If Louisville wins the ACC and Miami's loss is their only loss is to Louisville, yes, I think there's a world where they make the college football playoff. If they stay at 1 loss, which they won't because they're going to lose to NC State here in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say that they only had that 1 loss still and UVA wins the ACC. I don't think that they make it in.
I'm with you. I think that's pretty much spot on. But there's still half a season left with the at-large stuff and all that.
Yeah.
Too early to tell, probably.
Yeah. Someone back to the Florida State Stanford game. I heard Stanford players were openly mocking FSU players after the game. I mean, why not? They beat their ass. You win, you get to talk shit. At least in my book. Don't talk shit before the game, but you win, you win, talk shit. I mean, might as well.
Yeah, if you walk the walk, you get to talk a bit.
Yes. Wholeheartedly agree. The ACC had 2 Friday night matchups this week, the other being North Carolina at Cal. Cal barely escapes UNC with an insane fumble in the end zone in the 4th quarter. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, look through my videos. I will probably repost it again 47 million times because if there's one thing I am, it's a hater. And so if you haven't seen it, you'll see it again likely on my page this week. but it was hilarious. It actually really was UNC's game to lose, and they did exactly that. Lost it. Cal won 21-18. JKS threw for 209 yards. I didn't watch the entirety of the game. It was my brother's game that Friday night at Utah State, so there was a part of it I missed, especially because the Louisville-Miami game was like crazy. Anyways, I digress. It seems like at some point JKS came out of the game. I might be wrong. And was shaken up because then some true freshman player was playing for a while.
JKS did come out for a little bit.
Okay. I wasn't making that up.
No. I do love Cal. You can take them out of the Pac-12, but you can't take the Pac-12 after dark out of Cal. But looking at North Carolina, this probably felt like their best chance to win a conference game. And I was thinking about this today because I did do a little prep for this. And I think the crux of the situation for UNC is that they overpromised and underdelivered. And they came in acting like college football was going to be child's play, Super Bowls, all that. And I think that insulted a lot of college football people. And I think it put them in a position where because they cannot walk the walk, like we talked about with Stanford and Florida State, they're not able to talk the talk anymore. So in a scenario where they came in and admitted that this would be a rebuild, like they said after they lost a few games, this would be a moral victory. This would be something you can build on. But after coming in and acting like they were going to run right through the conference, there are no moral victories. And at this point, they're not even going to get a real victory in the conference.
Yeah, I have a hard time neutrally talking about UNC, but I don't think I'm being biased when I say getting a conference win out of the games that they have left is going to be tough. They, this coming week, have the South's oldest rivalry. If you know, you know. And then they play at Syracuse the following week. They have a short week. I don't think Syracuse is a great football team without their starting quarterback. But I think they're still better than UNC, to be honest. Then they play Stanford, which Stanford's looking like they might be a decent football team.
Yep.
So don't count them out of the race. Then they're at Wake Forest, massive out. Then they finish with all the North Carolina teams. They go to Wake, they play Duke, and then they go to NC State. 3 in-state losses in a row, in my opinion. So it doesn't put them up for success. And you're right. I think that was their best chance to win a game. In their defense, in being nice to them, everyone knows how I feel about the time zone change, and I never bet on the team that has a time zone change, and they kept it pretty close for a 3-hour time zone change. And again, don't believe in moral victories, but if you can have one, that's probably the one. Moving on to Georgia Tech at Duke. Georgia Tech ranked number 12 at the time at Duke. Final score was 27-18. The Georgia Tech defense had a 95-yard scoop and score and dominated the second half. Georgia Tech and UVA remain the only 2 teams in the ACC without a conference loss at this point.
Yeah, and this is just kind of what Georgia Tech does. They're never going to they will run over people, but they're never going to blow people out in the conference. They're always going to play close games. They're a run-heavy team. This is what they are. It was kind of fun watching the contrasted styles between Duke being a very pass-heavy team with Darian Mensah and then Haynes King being more of a running back than a quarterback. But I will say this is my hot take for the week. If Georgia Tech goes undefeated, if they do, Haynes King will be a Heisman finalist.
Okay. Follow-up question. Do you think Georgia Tech goes undefeated?
I do. So I have their schedule. If it'll load right here. That's a big if, apparently.
Up next, they have Syracuse.
Yep.
Then they go to NC State. Then they're at Boston College. Then they have Pitt at home. And then my favorite rivalry that's not my own. Good, clean, old-fashioned hate.
Yeah, kind of wordy, but I do love that game. And Georgia is obviously the hard one. Syracuse is Syracuse. NC State will be close. I'm not going to comment on that one. Boston.
Correct.
is not a good football team this year, and Pitt is very beatable. Georgia looks really good one week, and then they have games where it's like, okay, is the run ending here? So there's just something about this Georgia Tech team. There's something weird about them. They find ways to win in games that they really shouldn't, and they play to the level of their competition, which is dangerous. But it also works really well in games like that Georgia game. So I do think they run the table, and I think Haynes King will be in New York come December.
I like it. That's a great take.
Well, you can't agree with it.
I don't why I mean I don't disagree with the fact that I think that Haynes King is in the conversation. I do think they lose one of their games coming up. I think they're playing with fire each and every week in the sense that, like you said, they're not blowing out teams. So one of these weeks, it has to go the other way. They got very lucky at Wake Forest in, I think, week 3. And so I think one of these games ends up not going their way. However, I do think that they beat Georgia. They almost beat them last year. It went to, unfortunately, only like, I think 3 overtimes because we changed the overtime rules. So lame, so dumb. Hate, hate, hate. However much you hate the NCAA, it's not enough.
Yeah.
But it was close then. And I think that Georgia Tech is a better football team this year, and Georgia is a worse football team this year. I don't think Georgia is bad. I just think that they are not as good as they were last year. And it is also at the Superdome. And Georgia historically doesn't play very well there, doesn't win games there. So I think it is in favor of, and it's technically a home game for Georgia Tech. So I'm in favor of them taking it home. And if you are a Georgia fan watching this, know that I'm rooting for you every other week, but the one you go against the ACC, and you know that. Cool. Okay, moving on. What is our next game? Oh, Washington State at UVA. So UVA barely escapes and wins 22-20 off of a safety, I believe. The reason I say I believe is because, yeah, they did get a safety. I was right. The reason I said I believe is because I was watching this game, but I was at the Holy War while this game was going on. Not the best service, so it was cutting out here and there. But yes, one off of a fourth quarter safety barely escaped Washington State. I knew this game was going to be close.
Yeah, I knew it would be close after Washington State almost and probably should have beat Ole Miss. I didn't think it'd be this close. As we all know, I am a big Virginia fan this year, apparently. I picked them as the dark horse to win the ACC, and I still think they will because why not? But that game was a gut check. And look, at the end of the day, if you can win your worst game of the year, then you got a good thing going. I thought Virginia looked better in their loss to NC State than they did against Washington State. And so you got out of it. It was close. Let's not do it again.
Facts. Someone thinks that Michael thinks that Louisville is going to win the ACC this year. Do you think that Louisville and UVA is the ACC championship this year?
No, I think it's UVA and Georgia Tech.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see the vision.
If UL is there, though, I won't be shocked. I will say that. I mean, this conference is wide open right now.
Yeah, that is true, especially with the Miami loss. It's absolutely wide open. I know this is not really a preview to next week's games, but UVA does play at UNC this week. Again, I'll say it, I'll scream it from the rooftops in the South's oldest rivalry. It is a rivalry game. It is the oldest rivalry in the South. It started the same year as Georgia-Auburn, the Deep South's oldest rivalry, and they've played consecutively every single year since. It's not usually a game that goes to the person. It's very much usually a game that goes to the person who's ranked higher and is better. It's not usually like everything goes out the window on rivalry week. But do you think that UNC stands any chance against UVA this weekend? They are home in Chapel Hill.
I just don't see it. And you kind of hit the nail on the head with rivalries and how those are always weird, but not to keep picking on him. I don't think Bill Belichick is all that invested in rivalries, I think is the best way to put it. And as you pointed out, this isn't the kind of rivalry where weird stuff happens. You look at the Red River shootout. Oklahoma's probably the better team overall this year. They got blown out against relatively bad Texas team. Weird stuff happens in rivalry games. I don't think UNC's coaching staff views this as one.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Michael said the ACC Week 8 standings are incredible. That they are. If there's one thing about the ACC is that the Coastal brought coastal chaos to the entirety of it when they disband conference leagues within the conference.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this. I do think that UVA has an easy path to the ACC title game. My worry for them is their last 3 weeks, but specifically their last 2 weeks. They play at Duke. Let's go back one. They play Wake Forest. It's home, but I think that the North Carolina teams, they drop one of those possibly. And then until I'm proven otherwise, they do have Virginia Tech at home, and I have them losing that game because if there's one thing UVA is going to do, it's going to find a way to lose to Virginia Tech every damn time. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, you would know a lot more about that than I would. Oh, happy birthday, Coach TJ, by the way.
Yes, correct. It is my dad's birthday today.
Yeah.
Funny side note, he shares a birthday with Kim Kardashian.
You mean Kim Kardashian shares one with him, right?
Correct, because my dad is older than Kim K. So, yeah, super funny. I text him that every year. Happy birthday to you and Kim K. Let's hear about Wazoo Cougat again. Honestly, I love Wazoo. If you don't know, my uncle played at Wazoo in the early 2000s. Cougar Gold is a hidden treasure. And my boy, may he rest in peace, Mike Leach coached at Wazoo. They will always have Pullman, Washington will always have a special place in my heart. So, yeah, unfortunately they took an L, but to the ACC, so I can accept that. Okay, UConn at Boston College. UConn wins 38-23. My thoughts are really quick and short on this one.
Yeah.
Is Boston College the worst team in the ACC? I think the answer is yes.
I don't think that's debatable. My only question about this game is can we swap Boston College and UConn in the ACC?
At this rate, that's a valid question.
Yeah. I don't really have much else to say about BC at this point.
Yeah, I think it's really a race to the bottom between Boston College and UNC at this point. Like, truly, I don't know who's worse, and they don't play each other, but I wish they did.
Not the battle that Belichick and O'Brien thought they'd be having.
Correct. Correct. Okay, up next we had SMU at Clemson. SMU wins 35-24. SMU seems to have found their stride. I was skeptical of them coming into the season. SMU's quarterback did well, threw for 2 touchdown passes. Clemson was held to just 1.2 yards per carry. Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin Jennings, I loved him. We recruited him when I was at Sam Houston. Had him committed for like a day. That was a good day. But yeah, he seems to have gotten his groove back, gotten their feet under them. This is just apparently what SMU does. They lose an early season game to a Big 12 team. We get to conference play, and they're like, hey, we were able to get in here for a reason. As for Clemson, they are who we thought they were, and with Wesco out for the year now, I can't see things getting much better.
SMU is good. Yeah, I didn't have them as being good, but they have done exactly what you've said. They've really turned it around. So, just very interesting. All Texas schools are currently on my shit list for several reasons. We'll get into that. But sure, SMU can be good. All right.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, you're good. You good? Now you have feedback. Okay. Two more. We have Pittsburgh went to Syracuse. Pittsburgh won 30-13. Like I said, I think that Syracuse and Fran Brown were set up for a good season until they lost. Oh, hold on. We lost. Oh, he's back.
Yeah, sorry. There was
No,
like a
you're
lightning
good.
strike like real close to my house. So
No,
yeah.
no, no. You're totally fine. You're totally fine. I think I was just saying how Syracuse, I think it's a bummer. Fran Brown and Steve Angeli were going to be great this year. Honestly, I do. So it's a bummer that he got hurt and is no longer playing this season. Um, Pittsburgh is a team that's very confusing to me. I think they've been very inconsistent. I've seen them play amazing. I've seen them play horribly. So, like, I guess it just kind of depends on which team's going to show up.
Yeah, I think ever since benching Eli Holstein, I think that kind of provided the spark that they needed.
Yeah.
I really think it would, but that's why they're the head coach and I'm not. Uh, but they are very, very weird. I know that's not like a great descriptive term, but they're just very inconsistent. You don't know who you're getting week to week, and we'll find out what they can do. They're playing a really good team this week, probably the best team they've played, I would say, since Louisville, and we'll see just what this new quarterback can do.
Yes, they will. I wish I was going to that game. I'm excited for my dad to come off of his bye week. I love a bye week because it's a win, but it's a win, and I don't mean that in like a it's a win moral victory. I mean it's like a win. Like players need the week off to regroup. So do coaches.
Yep.
So does support staff. If you're not familiar with how it goes, bye weeks are incredible. You need a day. But yes, I'm excited to see how that works out. Michael asks, who has the best offense in the ACC right now? Which I think is a really good question because I don't think it's super obvious. Who would you say?
You know, I could give you an answer today, and I'll have a different one in a week. I
Same.
would have said Miami. I don't feel good
Same.
about that now.
Same.
Is it Pitt with the new quarterback? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. So, I'm a Texas guy. I'll go with that and say SMU with Kevin Jennings looking right and looking like the guy that we know he can be. SMU probably has the highest ceiling of any offense outside of Miami.
Okay, I am going to go with Georgia Tech because at the end of the day, you'd think it was Clemson, given the talent that they have on the offensive side of the ball on that roster, but it's not.
Especially with Wesco being out now.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
I'm going to go with Georgia Tech, and the only reason I'm picking Georgia Tech over SMU and Pitt, and obviously Miami, because I would have also said Miami, but you can't be the best offense in any conference if your quarterback throws 4 interceptions in a game, unless you are Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
I had to throw that one in there. For those that don't know, Patrick is a Green Bay Packers fan. So at any chance I get to talk about how amazing the Detroit Lions are these days, I'm going to take. But the difference between Jared Goff and Carson Beck is that Jared Goff can throw 4 interceptions and still win a football game, and looks like Carson Beck cannot. So I will say Georgia Tech, and I say that only to say because they're currently undefeated and they've gotten the job done every week. I think between Haynes King and then the running back whose name is not Haynes King, it's something Haynes or something King. Why can I not think? Jamal Haynes. Yes. Between Haynes King and Jamal Haynes, really, until I'm proven otherwise, it's them. The same way it was Miami until proven otherwise, and they proved me wrong. Okay. What game are you most excited for this week around college football in general?
I think anytime you have the number one team in the country playing the number two team in the country, that has to be the top of the list. So North Dakota State, South Dakota State not missing a beat with Jimmy Rogers going to Wazoo, North Dakota State be North Dakota State. um, I love this game every year, even if it's not number one and two. It's usually a top five
Yeah,
matchup. I thought it is number one and two, really great. And this is probably, depending on how the bracket shakes out, probably a preview of the national championship.
absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree. I think it's important that if you are a real CFB sicko, you also support FCS football and all the football. So I love that pick. I think that this is a good week in the ACC to pick my dad's game, to be honest. This is not Homer of me. I think the Pitt NC State game is a very telling game for both of those programs for the rest of the season. Um, I don't feel like that's a biased pick, to be honest, but to set aside bias if people feel like it is. The game I'm most excited for is definitely UVA at UNC. That is bias of me,
I was going
actually.
to say, yeah.
This is probably more bias of me. And that is because that game was so deeply meaningful to me for so long. And so I care about the outcome of that game, and I always have, and I always will, just because like when your dad's part of a rivalry for freaking 9 years, it does matter. So I'm excited to see how that one shakes out. I wish it would be, I'm hoping for a game, right? So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that rivalry is giving us rivalry week vibes. The Georgia Tech UGA game is huge for the ACC this year. Absolutely. That is why we need Georgia Tech to pull out the dub. And I know that as an ACC or as an SEC grad, you're not rooting for other SEC teams. So I'm assuming you also want Georgia Tech to win.
I mean, thanks to Gig'em, all that stuff. This is very weird for me to say. I never thought I would say this in my lifetime. A&M doesn't need Georgia to win or lose to get to the SEC championship game. We control our destiny. I could go on and on about it, but it's an ACC podcast. But I do hope for a good game. Like as an SEC grad, you want the SEC to do well, but as long as it's not a blowout, I'm happy. I just can't stand when you have these big matchups and big rivalry games and it's over before halftime.
100%. I don't think it will be. The clean old fashioned hate delivered in 2024, and I think we're in for a game like that in 2025.
Agreed.
Stanford football update said, I will say Miami Stanford will not be a good game. I wouldn't take it
Miami.
off the table.
You never know. No, it's at Miami, I think, right? It is. So that's really helpful for my. If it was in Stanford, I would kind of have this on upset alert, but I don't think Stanford gets run over. I think they make it close, but Miami has too much to lose, and I think last week they're going to learn a lot from that.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. It's going to go one of two ways. It's going to go one of two ways. Yes, I am bought into the Fighting Andrew Lux, and
Franklin.
This is going to get clipped.
All right.
Whew. Okay. Everyone knows that I hate Stanford. And most of that has to do with Christian McCaffrey and other things, but Christian McCaffrey being one of those things, because of the bowl game sitting out situation, right?
Right.
But I can't hate him anymore. I've learned so much. I've grown to love him since writing for the 49ers. Like, that man is a dog.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So, yes, Sav is buying into what Stanford is giving. Stanford has done nothing but surprise me this year. And I mean that in like every facet of everything. Online, I talked shit about him for a whole day, and they took it like champs and laughed, and it was hysterical, right? Then I start writing about the 49ers, mostly Christian McCaffrey, because it's the only player left on the entire team. And he makes me realize that I love him, right? I've been a Cal fan my whole life because I'm a Detroit Lions fan and Jared Goff. And I know so many people that have played there, JJ Arrington, all this, that, and the other, Nate Longshore. But I'm like, Stanford be showing up and showing out and beating Florida State and participating in the pod. So Stanford football updates, it might just be you single-handedly, you and Christian McCaffrey, but I'm buying in to whatever it is Stanford's selling. I'm not going to lie.
Also, big Toby Gerhart fan over here. Just want to throw that name out.
There you go. He goes, I never thought I'd see the day. That's facts. That's facts. You and me both. You and me both. Anyways, yeah, insane. But I wouldn't count Stanford out of the Miami game because, like I said, I think that game goes one of two ways. I think it goes the way of Carson Beck, lock-in, revenge tour. That last game was on me. I'm going to do a lot better. I have a lot to lose and everything to prove. It just is insane when you have the offense and defensive line that Miami does that, like, Carson Beck can't win football games, right?
Yeah.
The other problem is that it is at Miami. If it was at Stanford, if it was at Stanford, that would give me better hope for Stanford. But there is a world where, and I'll say this, Mario Cristobal is notorious for dropping a game he should have won. But I think the problem is that might have been the Louisville one because it's usually only one or two, and that might have been the one. But there is a world where that Louisville loss was very defeating to Miami, and they don't show up on this weekend either. So
yeah, and you're going to know really quickly early on in the game which one is going to be. I would say Carson Beck's the quarterback you win with, not because. So
yes.
If he's really going to be in one of those slumps that we saw him get into at Georgia, this could get really interesting really quickly.
Yeah. No, I think it could. I think it could. So Stanford football updates, don't count yourself out yet. I know that there is people actively preying on Carson Beck's downfall. So if you need me to put you in contact with them so you guys can hire an Etsy witch together to hex him, please let me know. The Etsy witch that was hired for Fred Warner worked. So who's to say? Who's to say we can't find that same one for Carson Beck? Just kidding. I hope everyone always plays to their best. It's so much better to like beat teams at full strength, you know, than you really beat them. So yeah. Cool. That is the ACC. That is the games we're most looking forward to this week. Stanford football updates. Keep us updated on the Etsy witch hiring. Asking for a friend myself for non-football related things. This is interesting. 25% of starters left on stretchers. Stanford is 5-0 against the last 5 AP top 3 opponents in regulation play. Best in D1. Last one was Mario in 2021. Interesting. I will say, we forgot to mention, most notably, the Stanford won against Florida State without their correct me if I'm wrong, guys, without their starting quarterback, running back, one of their wide receivers, a corner. They were pulling 49ers level like second stringers out of their ass and still won.
They're about to have to go into the stands at some point.
Yeah, like they were missing so many players and they still pulled out the dub.
Yeah, I think that's just more about FSU than anything. But
hey, no one cares how they happen, just that they do happen. And by that I mean dubs. So yeah, they also had the offensive lineman out. Yeah, it was just everybody was out. So great job. Yeah, that's kind of the ACC week 7. No, week 8. No, week 7. No, week 8. Recap? Week 8 recap. Correct. It says it on the freaking graphic. Week 8 recap. Thank you all so much for being here. Patrick, thanks for being here as well. Love to have you on. Love it even more when I have you on and your hot takes hit. So great job on that. We will see you guys all next week for week 9. I have a new guest coming on next week that nobody knows. So that'll be exciting and fun. And Patrick, I hope you're back eventually. Where can we find you and follow you?
I'm on Twitter at Pat Allen CFB, and aside from that, I am a ghost.
Love it. Love
Yep.
it. Twitter's all that matters anyway.
Exactly. All right. Thanks, Singigum. Roll wave, and I will see you next time.
Bye.